Welcome to the next video on interpreting the short verses. My name is Dan Paulson. Welcome to the channel. In this video, I'm going to step into some more Jesus work. We've covered some already, but this time I'm going to step into a new verse that we recognize. It's called, "You may have heard, but I say to you." Okay, or something to that effect. All right. What I want to say is that the entire lineage of Abrahamic religion is framed on a single monomyth. There's other material in there that is not monomyth, that's just spiritual inner working material. But all of the prophets, and when it gets down to Jesus and all of the Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, plus Paul's work itself, all of them comprise monomyth structures that are holding the material. What I'm doing here seems incredibly simple, but it's a transition that people have to make in their own minds, and if they can't make it, they'll never see it. They will carry it in their hands, never knowing that they're carrying it in their hands. And that is exactly what the monomyth template does. The monomyth template is a self-healing template. It is actually a template based on human life, how we come about, how we emerge, how we become products of our experiences, how we hold on to our pain and shame, how things act out and continue to hurt us, and how to go in and to address that to stop that from hurting. Okay, let's go ahead and start on a verse. And before I do, let me say I'll post a link below to all of the ones that led up to this. I don't want to do an overview on this one. I want to keep these short. This is like 8 or 9 now, so the overview would be the length of the video. So to catch up, we're going through, this is just going through all of the verses that we can find in the world using one exact interpretation process, where we are playing it out in the psyche, finding out how these parts are analogous terms that are nevertheless holding the same idea that there is a one common path, regardless of where you are in the world. And right now we're just focusing on some Jesus work. It's big. Okay. Here we go into the Beatitudes, is where I just did the last one. So we'll jump right back into that, into the Sermon on the Mount. This is one where it has the "you have heard it was said, but I say to you that." So there's something there that catches my attention. I've got a lot of electronics background and a lot of digital statements, if, then, this, or that, different things that I see in the verbiage, but I'm not quite sure what it is. I have to analyze it. So what I see here is, "You have heard that it was said, you shall not commit adultery. But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one of your members than your whole body to be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one of your members than for your whole body to go into hell." All right, as I look at this, I want to pick this thing apart. I'm going to spread it out here. "You have heard, but I say, if your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out then, if then, if then." I'm seeing if-thens in here that are like, what is that? And I keep going through. "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." That was the last one. "Blessed are for theirs." Blessed are, if then, if then. That's an if then too. Here's where it first shows up in the Bible, because the Bible, the part of the monomyth is that there is cause and effect. That's what this is. And that things are going to be cycling. This is where it first shows up in Genesis. Okay, at this point, I want to stop and talk about it for a second. If you follow my work, you know what I'm up to. And if not, you might wonder what this is about. But stick through the video. We're going to pick some things apart. Creation is about me. It's not about the creation of the world. It's about the creation of my existence in the world. That means, in this case, what we've got is God. We've got the earth, and we've got vegetation and fruits within that vegetation. And the way that this is going to work in the mind, in the higher realm inside, higher realm, mental realm, cosmic realm, I don't know what to call it. Instead of outward looking and saying God made those trees and those things at this time and they're producing fruits, we're going to go somewhere else with it. God is the higher self. The earth is myself. And what I'm creating at this early stage of my development is my garden, which means my inner being and what emerges from it, and the idea that whatever emerges from me is going to produce fruit that is going to continue to produce plants that continue to cycle itself over again. We're going to become products of repetitive actions. And that is what that is doing right there. If you have this life experience and you manage it this way, then you're going to become this kind of a person as a result of it. This is going to start becoming your life experiences, whether it's think of being an infant. If you started out life anywhere in the world, you would be just as comfortable with that language and those beliefs as anywhere else. We are products of that right there. We need to know we're products of our experiences. This is a part of what later is going to help us go in and heal ourselves, is recognizing the fact that what is acting out of us is of the nature of what we have stored inside of us. And that is what is going to eventually emerge. And we do that by repeating through the material and finding that if we do that always, we can interpret every verse and the conflict goes away. There's never any conflict anymore if we interpret in a certain way. Okay, if I go back and look at it, this is exactly what I get out of here. Very much so when I get done with my interpretation process. I'll read it the way it was. Then God said, "Let the earth put forth vegetation, plants yielding seed, and fruit trees of every kind on the earth that bear fruit with the seed in it." And so it was. The earth brought forth vegetation, plants yielding seed of every kind, and trees of every kind bearing fruit with the seed in it. I interpret that to, I exist now and will have life experiences of any human kind, and these experiences will become my inner self, and I will live through those. And given that they have seeds inside of the fruits, that whenever they do grow and produce fruits, that they will start, that's showing that there is a cycle of the same nature, the cycle of the same plant, the same tree, whatever the same emotion is, there's going to be a cyclical return of that. Then it came into being. This is my creation. This is cause and effect at a mental level, and I'm going to bring in something from Buddha, the very first line in the Dhammapada. This is a little bit, not exactly word for word. I don't have much space up there. Buddha, all that we are is the result of what we have thought, and that pain follows. If there's bad things, that follows like a wheel following the ox that draws the carriage. That is cause and effect at the mental level. And these are two different ways of doing it, a very simple Buddha way or a very complicated Jewish, we're going to create a religion and nest the template in different verbiage way, which is exactly what they've done. And what I'm going to suggest right here, just because it seems to be what is going on, is that right here in the beginning, at this part right here, there's no problems yet. They're setting up conditions for it. Anything can happen. All the trees can emerge. The fruit's going to happen. Whatever your life is going to be, it's established right here. Right after this, we're going to have a time and place where we're happy, we're naked, unashamed in the Garden of Eden. First sin hasn't happened yet. So this actually is prior to that. This is just setting up, here's how life is going to work. They're clever. There is something in here. And then throughout, as we go, I'm going to jump back into the Jesus material here. We're going to see this is downstream. Now we're interacting with that cause and effect teaching is what we're going to be doing. But every time we do it, it's going to sound like different verbiage. Some of it will sound like plants. There are going to be fig trees, if you remember, that are out of season that don't produce figs. So he calls it, he kills it then. So what does that represent? That means something is growing up from within us whenever we don't, at any point in time, and it's not doing anything good for us. This isn't something bad happening. This is telling us to let go of stuff that is not doing anything good for you. It's not benefiting you. It comes up whenever it comes up. It's not doing it. It doesn't benefit you. Get rid of it. Kill it. That's the only way that verse is going to work. Cause and effect is absolutely key to understand in this material, and they've got it put in verbiage like so, thus. You may have heard, but I say, blessed are, for they will. Things like that, all of those are statements of if this, then that. Cause and effect, this creates that. And that is going to stem ultimately right down to the brain level, and the memory that we are storing in the emotional state of the experience is going to be the seed that eventually we're going to have to be going after. That's where it's going to go to. So that is where the seed from the plant comes from. I had this experience and I hate it, or I'm ashamed or something. And from there it continues to grow and emerge. It comes up, it cycles, it creates fruit that is bad fruit that goes into the ground and it surfaces again. That is cleverly what they're teaching in here. All right, let's go back to the Jesus verse now, and I'm going to jump through this. I want to really just kind of advance through it and not explain a lot of stuff. It should make sense. People that have been following know what I'm doing, that all of these are analogous terms. They're not meant about the real world. In fact, if you look at it, you would go, you shall not commit adultery. But I say to you that everyone who even looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery in his heart with her. If your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out. You know what? I know darn good and well that throughout life there have been people who have strayed and went, oh, I committed adultery. I have never found one person yet that said, I'm going to follow Jesus' teaching here, and I'm going to gouge my eyeball out and chop off my right hand. It's like, okay, how come you will use some verses literally and some not? If you treat everyone the same way, we will get rid of that conflict. But we have to know this is analogous verbiage. What is adultery? What is a woman? What is lust? Inner heart, then the right eye. Okay, what I'm going to do is start working out what these are. In the physical world, they mean one thing, but you look at it and go, boy, I'm not doing that. If you take it into the mind and assign all of these things values. Now, throughout Abrahamic material, woman is the inner being. That's the inner self. Okay? So the woman here, we're not going to be any different, right? Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, that starts out as our conscious and our subconscious unhurt. We come back here, we're not going to treat woman any different. It's going to stay the same. That is our inner being. Adultery means that we are having experiences in life. Okay, adultery, what does that mean? That means that we are having a relationship that we don't want to have, or that is a bad relationship. What that is going to mean in the real world, or in the mental world, is that we are consciously having an experience and we're storing that away into our subconscious. We are having a bad relationship with ourselves. The right eye is symbolic for, it's not our physical right eye. It is somehow, right is something that means not good. It's not a good direction. We're going to see it comes up commonly. I don't have that one nailed down. But the eye just means the things that tempt you, the things you look at. If you see things, stop doing that. Let it go. Turn away from it. Tear it out and throw it away. It's better for you to lose one of your members than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. Hell is life experience here. How is your life? If you're lusting after something, wanting something, constantly, you feel this gnawing, this I gotta have. It doesn't feel good. You have to, if you have something you want that you can't have, or you just have this desire of things you see. Now, the other one is the right hand. That's the physical one, not just the things that you mentally think of and desire, but now the things that you're doing. What are you doing in physical life? Drugs, alcohol, relationships, doing things like that. I don't, any number of things that is not allowing you to have a good life. You're holding things inside of you that are physical experiences, but you've got to get rid of that. This is a healing. This is about leaving the past behind, which becomes an incredibly common motif in the stories. Leaving the past behind and having cyclical pain is going to emerge again and again. And if we treat the verses this way, they're always going to make you go, oh, okay, I got it. Yeah, this is about me attaching to the physical world. I see those people over there, angry at those people over there, and without knowing any different, I just jump right in. I am what? I'm allowing myself to connect to the physical world without knowing reality. And then I emotionally become a part of that process that's going on instead of being stepped back and detached from it and seeing a bigger picture. I'm either in a tribal mess or I'm looking at the big picture from up above. We want to look at the picture from up above. All of the verses are kind of that way. This is about leaving the past behind. You will find things like this that you can look at that are really incredibly abbreviated versions of it. Like in the Gospel of Thomas, verse number 42, Jesus said, become passers-by. Let go. There's the shortest, what's the shortest description to how to get to enlightenment? I would have to say, let go, turn loose, something like that. Whatever you hang on to is what comes with us. We need to learn to experience life without clinging to life, without hanging on to it. And that's just going to be common. Okay, let's move on to the next Jesus one here. It was also said, whoever divorces his wife, let him give her a certificate of divorce. But I say to you that anyone who divorces his wife, except on the ground of sexual immorality, causes her to commit adultery, and whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery. Okay, these are, I'll be straight up honest with you. You read these things and you want to understand them and you try to figure them out. And if there's a point where you look at them and go, boy, that's just, I don't even know what to do with it. You don't think much of it. There's a point where I realize it plays out in the psyche and I begin to understand that these are somehow holding analogous verbiage that are component parts of a mental hierarchy, that this story is teaching me something in an encrypted way. So then my brain reaches out for understanding that. And then it goes into this kind of there's this weird mode that the head feels. It's not quite anticipation. It's like there's a void, something's reaching out. And within a day or two, things like this, you begin to look at them and go, okay, I see what's happening. Pathways, I think when that feeling is happening, that pathways are actually being wired. When you're seeking, you will find. When you're at that mode right there, when you're feeding and doing things like that, you're getting more left over than when you started. There's something happening in the background, definitely. But you look at a verse like this, and I would look at it and go, yeah, that makes my brain hurt. Okay, let's analyze it. I'm going to break it apart like this. All right, let me just go through it very quickly like before. It was also said, whoever divorces his wife, let him give her a certificate of divorce. So there's also something else going on here where Jesus' teachings are transitioning from the old way to the new ways, from the Jewish to the Christian. It was also said, so this harkens back to Jewish teachings, whoever divorces his wife, let him give her a certificate of divorce. However, now he's adding something in. He's saying, but I say to you, so he's got something else going on. But I say to you that anyone who divorces his wife, now here we have the hierarchy. The wife is each person's inner being, and the consciousness or the male is each person's consciousness, actually. So each one of us fit into this story perfectly if we understand that we are the consciousness and the wife is the subconscious. It's a mental process. So whoever divorces their wife, that's us having life experiences as kids. We take off. It's like the Garden of Eden. We become dual inwardly, like first sin. We're blindly having experiences and connecting to the physical experiences. The consciousness is in charge there, but not really. The consciousness is just floating along, thinking it's in charge, judging things and putting it away. We are creating our inner turmoil unknowns to us by judging those experiences and putting them away in our brains. So that's the divorce of the wife. This is where we now have things inside of us that might act out that later we go, oh my gosh, why did that happen? We are no longer unified. We now have things inside of us that we don't like, but we put them there. We don't know that. Except on the ground of sexual immorality. Let's come back to that one. It's a tough one. But I say to you that anyone who divorces his wife causes her to commit adultery. Okay, in this case, adultery is an analogous term. It does not mean adultery. It's not a physical. This is not about the physical world. They have to mean something in that hierarchy. So adultery doesn't mean exactly what it does. It's going to come out something like that. But what we have here, when we're committing adultery, what this means, it's like first sin, actually. When giving birth, every time you give birth, it's painful. What this here is committing adultery, that the subconscious stores all the experiences, including the bad, and acts out whenever triggered. This hurts other people, creating offspring in them. So this is our inner being creating adultery with other beings. And what it means is that we are creating offspring. We're creating hurt. We're creating more of what we have by triggering it out. So this is our inner being committing adultery. Except on the ground of sexual immorality. We'll jump back up to that one. This one took me a while to figure out. At first I thought, boy, it shifts back to the external, but it doesn't. There's a point in time where when we're first born, there are certain qualities that we have, and those are wired in, hardwired qualities. Those are all fine. Most things are fine. However, sometimes there are things wired into people that are not okay. Doesn't happen maybe necessarily that much, but there are people that have got mental problems or disabilities, human dysfunctions, Jeffrey Dahmer, people like that. That's like, what would make somebody do something like that? They're born actually with something that isn't quite right. And that would be the time where you would say, well, sexual immorality means that there's somehow something acting out or doing out that you have no control over. that would be the only time you would want to divorce your inner being. It's like, oh my gosh, this is a part of me I'm born with that I don't want. I don't like it. It comes out. I don't know what it is. That creates in me something that I have no control over. You want to divorce yourself from that. So that is the time you do want to divorce your wife, when something is happening that you're born with, you don't have any control over. But when it's left in place, it commits adultery, yet has more offspring, and whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery. Marrying a divorced woman is allowing the negative perception of subconscious storage to remain in place. So this is us living life blind, just acting out, living life. We are married to a divorced woman because that is our inner being that is separated from us. We are divorced from our own inner self. It wraps that way. See how clever it is. And then act out and hurt others. That is what adultery is. We are now creating more offspring in places where I don't belong because I'm screaming and yelling and telling you this and that. And people are like, what's up with that, dude? Yeah, okay. So you see how they unwrap that way, that they can be complicated. But once you realize they're doing a certain something consistently in there, you can begin to continually unwrap those parts in that same way. You can see them consistently in there at some point when you are beginning to interpret them outwardly. Every story is different. Every story is just changing the analogs. There's a pattern to them that you begin to, well, yeah. Some people see the patterns. I do. So that's what I'm looking at now and analyzing them, and that this is what is actually emerging. You can see that it's there, that human life template, if we assume that's what it is, and begin to interpret and put everything on that template, yeah, that's where it fits. This is the human life template in the background of all myth and religions from antiquity. And the myths and religions are the carriers of the one true template. Everybody that is acting out on behalf of your God, you're acting out on behalf of the carrier of a template, the wrapping paper of a box that needs to be opened up and looked inside of. The place where we cease to become dividers. It's not going to happen. Anyway, okay, keep working on this. Questions, comments, feel free to put them below. If you wouldn't mind, like and subscribe and help the channel grow. There's a Discord server up now. I'll post a link below, as well as a link to, instead of posting all of the videos that I have in this section right here, I'll just post a link to the playlist where they are. There's one playlist where I've got these short verse interpretations. The fun place to start if you're getting involved with this. All right, take care. I'll see you in the next video.